Hey guys, what is up? It is Astrolia Katie9LFZ back at it again, and today we are wearing the sweatshirt, which means it's time for an NASA News. Let's get right into it. Okay, so what are we going to be talking about today in NASA News? Something very interesting. A lot of people now know that we are trying to get back to the moon by 2024 with the Artemis mission. And one of the biggest key points of that mission is that we're trying to go there sustainably. We're trying to establish a presence on the surface of the moon, and we want to be able to stay there, collect resources, use it as a bouncing off point to get to Mars, and generally just have a more permanent impact. Not permanent impact, that sounds bad, but a more permanent living area on the moon. One of the really important questions for that living area is location. I mean, when we choose the location, we're like, okay, does it need warm, cold? How much sunlight does it get a year? What's the climate like? What we're talking price-wise? Everything except for the price is also a consideration that you need to have on the moon. They already know going to the moon is going to be exorbitantly expensive, and they're kind of resigned to the fact that it will be. So this article talks a little bit about the different things that they will need in order to pick out the perfect base location to be going to on the moon. Now, one of the first things to take into consideration is sunlight. Obviously, solar power is a really good source of energy, and it becomes really important when you're relying on solar power to make up a lot of the power that you're going to be using in the day-to-day operations of the base. So they're looking for a place on the moon that will have near continuous sunlight so they can maximize the power of the sun to the absolute best that they can. One of the other things that they want to look at is they want to be able to be in the full sunlight for the base camp, but they also want almost complete darkness not that far away. One of the things that's really important to them is being able to go from their well-lit base site to the bottoms of some of these craters to see what's going on in the bottom of these craters. We believe that there is water in the craters on the bottom of the moon, and going there with humans, that's something that they're very interested in, is studying the bottom of these craters that never touch sunlight. They're in complete and total darkness 100% of the year. That's something they're really interested in. So you need complete light and also complete darkness, and you need it close enough that you can sort of do the transportation relatively easily. Now, one of the things that is actually really good for this is being able to just land right on the edge of one of these craters, because the rim of the craters is in near constant sunlight, but the base is in complete and total darkness. And that has to do with the fact that while Earth has a 23.5 degree tilt, the moon only has a 1.5 degree tilt on its axis. So the sunlight doesn't really vary throughout the year, whereas you can see on Earth, obviously the days get much shorter in the winter and the days get much longer in the summer. That's not something you really have to deal with on the moon because there isn't that much of a tilt on its axis. One of the biggest difficulties with choosing a landing site or a base camp specifically a landing site that's on the edge of these craters, is you need your landing site to be relatively flat. You don't want to get all the way to the moon to put your lunar lander down and have your lunar lander just boop. That would be really unfortunate, not to mention dangerous for the astronauts on board. So it's very important that the area that they pick to land on is really flat. The reason why it's really important to have your landing site far away from your base camp is because when you're landing, all of the thrust from those spacecraft engines that's helping to slow down the spacecraft itself is going to be spraying the lunar regolith, dust, gases, everywhere. Imagine all that force to slow down the spacecraft, but it's just directed at the surface of the moon. You're going to have tons of contaminants that are basically flying everywhere. Just like if you sneezed at the surface of the moon, right? A spacecraft is just sneezing at the surface of the moon hard enough that it stops the spacecraft. That is definitely an interesting comparison. Not one that I thought I would be doing, but here we are. So they're looking at potentially using natural barriers to help shield the base camp from those contaminants, because it is really important for scientific reasons, and also you don't want dust all over your solar panels. There's a ton and dust in every single nook and cranny of every single mechanical device. There's a lot of really important reasons that you want the landing site far away from your base camp site. One of the other things that they're looking at is being able to get to the far side of the moon, which we aren't able to see from Earth because it's the dark side of the moon. It's the far side of the moon. Being able to easily get there from the side that we can see from Earth, because the base camp has to be on the side that we can see from Earth. You radio geeks will love this. It's a lot easier to get the radio waves to travel line of sight, basically, as opposed to trying to bounce them off of satellites to go around to the far side of the moon. And radio communication is very important for those scientists that are on the Earth. And for the scientists that are on the moon, you really need that communication in case anything goes wrong, or in case something goes right and you just want to tell them, I just found aliens on the moon. So yeah, there is a lot of different factors that are going into play when they're choosing the landing site. I believe they do have a couple options for Basecamp's landing sites they're looking at. They want full sunlight, but they want it to be far enough from a flat area, but they want it to be close enough to the bottom of a crater, but they also want it to be close enough to the far side of the moon. But they want some natural terrain in between the landing site, the base camp. It's a whole bunch of very important variables that come into play when you're choosing this site, and I'm very interested to see what the site that they actually end up choosing is going to look like, because it'll be really interesting to see where they picked and why they picked where they picked. Well, guys, that will do it for this episode of NASA News. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned a little bit more about the wonderful world of space. And if you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, please. I appreciate all the support. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you on the very next edition of NASA News.